Teneshia, when we were here a year ago, the ink was not yet dry.
It was a little dry.
A little dry, getting there. Between the partnership between Zeno and EGAMI Group, can we talk just a little bit about how you and Teneshia came together and really how the partnership is going so far?
Thank you. We're so happy to be here a year into our partnership, and I think I want to pick up on something. I think it was Michelle or Charlene who said you need to ask. Who said that? Michelle, wherever you are. Hi. That's how this started. I had been on the PR Council board with Teneshia, and I, of course, knew Teneshia and EGAMI Group by reputation. And something in my gut and my heart told me that I need to get to know Teneshia better. And after the murder of George Floyd, there was a lot of activity about agencies and their numbers and numbers of diverse people, and I just felt there was something more creative and innovative that could be done to help advance the diversification of our industry, which has been a decades-long quest, and I'll say struggle. And so I reached out to Teneshia, and I asked her if she would be my friend. Because when I was growing up, my mother said, if you see someone you like, go up and ask them. And the other piece of advice my mother gave me, which I think has served me well, for those of you who know me, is God gave you a mouth, use it. And I think that was very much what we heard in the last session. So Teneshia and I began talking, and we realized that we had a lot in common, despite Teneshia growing up in Alabama and my growing up in a Jewish home in Brooklyn. And from there, I learned about Teneshia's business, what it was like to own and run a Black-owned business, and the incredible demand following the murder of George Floyd. And that was the beginning of our having discussions of what we, Zeno, could do to help fuel EGAMI forward. Not because we talked about making a lot of money, that's actually never been part of the discussion, but because we had the ability to help advance Teneshia's business. So that is how it began, and maybe Teneshia wants to take it from there.
So I'll start with the, when you're on the Zoom calls, right? And these Zoom board meetings would be like 3 hours. And for me, I always was checking out Barby's fashion. You can see this, right? And so when I got the G-chat, I'm like, wonder what she wants to talk to me about. She's always so sharp. So you drew me in, Barbie, with your fashion, okay? And really, she says, listen, I think we should be friends. Will you be my friend? There was a connection there. It really was. What Barbie didn't realize is during that exact time, post the murder of George Floyd, as a Black-owned business owner, at this time we were doing multicultural marketing for about 14 years, and our expertise was connecting brands with diverse audiences. And we were doing that. But after the murder of George Floyd, there was a global awakening that happened around the world. And many companies realized we need to do something. What's our role? And for us, all of a sudden, I don't know if they just Google, like, help us reach Black people. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, our phones started ringing like never before. And I'm like, we've been doing this for 14 years, but okay, if you want us to help you reach Black people, that's what we do. But the demand was it was crazy. And what I was saying to the team is we've worked for 14 years getting brands to say diverse audiences matter. You need to genuinely try to connect. You need to show up in the communities. And I said, we can't miss this moment. And we knew that if we were going to do it, we could not do it alone. And I want you all to think about that too in your own journeys. Don't approach your career journeys from a standpoint of you have to do it alone. So I said that to the team. Many companies courted us. We had opportunities for acquisitions, for buyouts. But when you've been given a dream or a vision, you're extremely protective of that dream and vision. And Michelle Flowers and I, we've had a lot of talks about that as well. And so as the founder of the organization, I was extremely protective, and I did not want to do a deal just to do a deal. I definitely wasn't interested in selling a dream or a vision with such a big purpose. And from the friendship with Barby, just from us getting to know one another, I realized we have a shared purpose here. This was a CEO. I know, Jasmine, you talked about being fearless. This is Miss Fearless.
Right. We have bracelets for anybody who wants them.
She was already doing the work. Zeno Group was doing things in the diversity space. She had a genuine desire to say, how do we get this right, and how do we go beyond the numbers? We had shared core values, and I just knew from a gut perspective, this is the one. And there you have it. We started saying, okay, we know we're supposed to do something together, right? What is this something? And we started to map it out. And the collaboration that we've done in this strategic alliance, it's the first of its kind. And I think it was just our willingness to come to the table to think differently, think outside of the box, but really gather around a shared purpose and shared values.
So we talk about this being a little bit of a new model for collaboration and change. And the very intentional language that we've developed in terms of describing the partnership between EGAMI Group and Zeno is around agency allyship. So that's some new language that Barby and Teneshia have worked really hard on in terms of defining it and being able to describe it. And maybe we can talk a little bit about what that means.
Go ahead.
All right. So how many, I know for some of you all, you're just starting out in your career. How many of you all have heard the term allyship? By way of hands. Okay. So in general, there's so many different definitions, but one of the most common ones is allyship is when a person from a privileged group works in conjunction with the marginalized group to help remove systems that challenge their basic rights, equal access, and ability to thrive in society. So that's sort of the general term. But for Barby and I, we took a step back because we had a lot of conversations around this is what allyship looks like amongst agencies. And so this is our definition. We wrote this. And it's when two or more agencies align in their unwavering and selfless advocacy, focused on fueling one another to push through and eliminate systemic barriers. And so giving a bit more context behind that, when we were forming the partnership, and whenever you form a partnership in your career, I want you to think win-win, not just what's in it for you, but what's in it for the other person. So in doing that, I openly shared with Barby some of the unique barriers that founders of color face. One is access to capital. In the year of 2019, only 2.3% of all capital dollars raised went to founders of color. So having access to capital to grow a business is huge, but for founders of color, getting that access is extremely hard. The second thing is connections. You had the previous panel talk about having the right connections and the doors open at the right time. That was a barrier that we also face. 3, curriculum. I was the first in my family to ever start an agency. I didn't even know what an agency was, to be honest with you, when I grew up. And so being the first and having access to the curriculum and the knowledge base was very important. And the last barrier was community. Finding a community in which the founders of color can actually thrive and learn. So those were not only Teneshia's barriers, but if you interview any founder of color, despite the industry, those were real barriers. Barby listened to that. And inside of the partnership, it was an intentionality to support the founder of color in overcoming those barriers. So we got access to capital. Say yay for the coins. Connection. And so we got connections to other companies, and we also provided Zeno Group with connections to some of our clients. we got the community. I think the community part was huge because, again, dreamers do not let dreamers dream alone. I didn't even realize after doing it in a silo for 14 years just how much we were looking for a we and being able to not only fight the fight, but have allies to fight the fight. And so that is how we kind of went to that definition. But Barbie, you talk about it from your standpoint.
You know, I will say that I know we're also talking today about careers, and I've had a long, not that long, I started when I was 10, long career, but I have to say this has been the most gratifying part of our career. You know, we talk to clients all day long about doing more, going beyond the products and services they sell. And the fact that I and Zeno had the opportunity to do something that had never been done before, to fuel this business, to have this business partnership and friendship with Teneshia, and to be able to go to clients with a very unique model that actually could serve their goals very well, has been the absolute highlight of my career. And when we started this, the intention was, and it still is, to be a model that other agencies can adapt, because we're not going to solve the diversity, equity, and inclusion problem in our industry, just us. We're going to solve it because others are going to learn, and I hope there are other agency allyships that will form because of what we have done. And I was talking earlier, we were talking earlier to Carmela about also the link between what we've done and advancing diverse individuals in their careers. And I think we're fairly comfortable in saying that because of this allyship, there are people at Zeno and people at EGAMI whose world has opened up in terms of what's possible. It's certainly for me. And I think we've been able to attract, retain, and advance talent in a way that perhaps we would not have been able to do. Have we cracked the code? Have we solved it? No. But I think this is, you know, to use an overused term, a journey. And we are learning along the way. And doing something together is better than going it alone. And I have learned so much. Again, we always come back to this. I'm not a person of color. I did not grow up around a lot of people of color, but I've learned so much, and I'm committed to learning. And the fact that Teneshia and I, from vastly different backgrounds, but you know what this shows? That in the end, we are all the same. And we all have the same values, and we all care about the same thing. Teneshia texted me a couple of weeks ago. She was with her grandfather? Mm-hmm. Grandfather on her farm on his farm in Alabama. And she said, this is where I grew up, looking at a farm in Alabama, and I know you grew up looking at the streets in Brooklyn, but here we are, you know, believing in things together. And the other thing I will say, you know, business, for the young people in the audience building your career, business is hard. We all work hard. But to do it with people, black, white, orange, green, who you care about, who you respect, who you can have fun with, is so important. Don't sacrifice this. When you are looking for jobs and your next moves, make sure these are people that you want to spend a lot of time with. And I love spending time with Teneshia well outside of work, and Grant too. and that's a gift, and don't sacrifice it, because I think that's an important part of this as well.
Yeah. This spring, I will have been at Zeno for 25 years, and I often tell people one of the reasons why I've stayed so long is because there's always something that I'm curious about. There's always something that I'm looking forward to, and will this work out, and how will this unfold? The partnership with Zeno and EGAMI was one of those things, and it is still like a work in process, and it's one of the many things that has kept me there for so long. In a second, I'm going to ask Barbie and Teneshia to describe maybe something very specific about the partnership, the allyship that has shown you in the last year or so, like it really is working. Here's something that we've accomplished together. For me, that story is, especially as I look out at my small sea of Zeno colleagues here, especially some of the young, diverse members of our staff that are here. You know, we, after the murder of George Floyd too, were getting asked a lot of questions like, what is Zeno doing? We have our Act Together commitments, and this is a piece of it. But the EGAMI Allyship was a way for me to be able to really connect, especially with our younger staff, and to show them that Zeno was not just using words, but action to make things happen. And that was during a time when there was a lot of turnover happening in the industry, and I do really feel like this partnership is something that helped us retain and keep a lot of talent. So it was a way for us to show, as I look out to Shannon and Elise and Q and others, to say this is a place for you, and you know, Zeno can be a place that you can spend your entire career just like I have. So Barbie and Teneshia, as you think out on the past year or so, is there a moment that maybe stands out where it was really like seeing the partnership in action that you felt like we really did do the right thing here?
You go first.
I think
There's so many, actually. It's hard to choose.
I know. I think one of the big ones for me, and just you all giving some of like what was the dream around what we were dreaming together. One, we wanted to create environments where we attracted diverse talent, but we also provided leadership opportunities and we were growing talent. That was one. The second thing is we wanted to be on the forefront of working with clients to unlock multicultural at scale. And then three, we wanted to make sure that the work that we're doing is actually impacting and leaving an imprint in multicultural communities. So that was like the collective dream. Again, be willing to dream a bigger dream with others, and you'll be surprised at how your vision can magnify. So knowing that was the North Star, there was a moment when Shannon came up to me, and I was in Chicago, and Shannon is on the Zeno Group's team. Shannon, wave your hand. And Shannon had been in a meeting because we're doing a lot of integrated work, and Shannon was in a meeting where she witnessed our managing director, her name's Paris Bowe, do what we were just naturally, like what we've had to do. And when I say do, she was just being authentic. She was really telling the client what would work in reaching a diverse audience and what would not. But she was able to do it in her own skin with no code switching. She didn't think about, like, how do I say this in a way that it would be received? That's one of the benefits when you just get comfortable supporting people in hearing the truth. And Shannon said to me, when I witnessed Paris do that, that's when I knew this is what I want to do. And when I told Paris about that moment, Paris started to cry in one of our leadership meetings. And so that was probably the big moment for me when I realized other diverse talent within Zeno Group's organization and or vice versa was starting to see someone like them and being able to say, this is what I want to do. And now Shannon is on an integrated team on the My Black is Beautiful account. So that was definitely like the moment that my heart was like, wow, it's working, Barbie.
I was in that meeting, and I also remember, I am never going to mess with Paris.
There are a lot of moments. There's actually two quick stories I want to tell. The first is Teneshia and I were at an event in New York. It was the DAA event. And she was introducing me, I don't know if you remember this, to some people. We shared a table. We like to show up together as much as possible. Teneshia and I like to get dressed up, if you haven't picked up on that. It's more fun when we do it together. And she introduced me to two senior individuals from EGAMI Group, and she said, this is what your investment has allowed me to do, to hire these two individuals ahead of what might have been possible. I want to tell one other very quick story. I was invited to a meeting at EGAMI. Can I say with,
Yeah, you can.
What's her name?
Tarana, me too.
The founder of the Me Too movement, to help think about their future. And we had met at Cannes, where Teneshia and I were together this summer, and we spoke, where we introduced agency allyship. And I said, yeah, I really would love to participate in a brainstorm. And I walked into the room, and I was the only white person. It was members of Teneshia's team and members of Me Too, and it really took my breath away. And all these years, the black individuals have said, I'm the only one in the conference room, and I paused for a moment, and I literally was looking out at a conference room with a sea of black faces and me. And you may or may not know me. I'm not a wallflower. I usually, and I sat down, and it took me a few minutes to get my bearings and my, not going to say courage, but I don't know as much as they do on these topics. And anyway, after a few minutes, I began to take a breath, relax, and I think I was able to contribute in a meaningful way. And when I left the meeting, I said to Teneshia, wow, that was really something. I really got that experience. So being able to be inside a black-owned business and appreciate that experience, it's more meaningful than I can ever express.
Okay. We have a few more minutes, and if someone wants to ask a question, we will let the mic float around a little bit. Leilani has fearless bracelets. Whoever asks a question gets a fearless bracelet, just like the ones that Teneshia and Barby are wearing. Something that I think it was Michelle or Charlene said that really resonated with me during the last session was, who is going to represent you if you are not in the room? And I have been in the room more often with Barby, where she has said, let me tell you about my friend Teneshia and our partnership with EGAMI. Barby and Teneshia, I know, those words probably resonated with you too, but can you talk just a little bit about that in terms of how you represent each other when you're not working in the same room together, but separately, whether it's talking to clients or working with your staffs?
So before coming over here, we were talking, and Grant said, what's the difference between an ally and a mentor? And so for all of the young people that are out there, there's different advocates that will support you in your career. One, I want to tell you, never underestimate the power of a mentor moment, because a lot of times you're looking for a mentorship of who's going to be in a relationship with you for a long period of time. If you keep yourself open, sometimes a mentor moment with someone of great influence can change the trajectory of your career. I've experienced that a lot. And then you have a mentor who's, somewhat coaching you and helping you develop. But an ally, and Grant brought this out, is really a champion. And when you're in the face of a champion, when they reflect back to you the best of who you're becoming. Like, they don't even see you just for who you are today. They see the best of who you're becoming. That is the feeling that I get when I'm in Barbie's presence, that she's not just seeing me for who I am today. She's seeing who I'm going to grow into for the next 10 years. She's championing and opening doors, knowing who that person is becoming in the next 10 years. And so, that's what a champion is. And then on the reverse side, we're doing business right now with shared clients or some clients that are not. I'm always listening for the opportunity to say, hey, multicultural isn't just this. Multicultural really is mainstream. And do you know about Zeno Group? Together, we're redefining the definition of multicultural from this to mainstream. You should have us bring our Zeno Group partner in. So it's always looking for also other doors that we can open to bring Zeno Group through as well.
Okay.
We want to let the audience ask questions. I guess yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Pat Ford.
No, he's behind you, Pat.
No, go ahead.
Is there a mic?
Go ahead, Pat. We can hear you. I'll repeat it.
Okay. I'm going to go ask the question. I'm somewhat fearless. So,
Can you say your name?
my name is Bill Amata.
Oh, yes, of course. I know that. Maybe they don't know it.
You might get this shortly. So, my name is George Moy. I work Bill on the Asian American advocacy issues. This is a great story. I'm just wondering your plan to expand, maybe you already have, expand the color spectrum from black and white African American to include other people of color, Hispanic, to me particular Asian American. Because we feel like we're always left out in the diversity conversation.
So
Good
that
question.
is a wonderful question, Bill. You are wonderful. So I know a lot of what we focused on today was the Black audience, but actually with EGAMI Group, when we say diverse audiences, we're actually talking Hispanic, we're talking Asian Pacific American, and we have a number of clients. One is a financial client, and we can say this, it's American Express, where we supported them in creating a cross-cultural multicultural strategy. And so even inside of that, we basically did a deep dive with Asian Pacific American, Hispanic, Black. We kind of found the unique experiences of each segment, and then if there were a common thread, and also worked with American Express to say, and here's how you uniquely reach each audience. Now, Bill, I'm not sure if you know this partner. John Carlo owns an agency, Plan C. But Plan C is one of EGAMI Group's agency partners, specifically reaching Asian Pacific American. And we also have another partner, CN Plus, in reaching Hispanic. And then EGAMI Group, we're actually also very much so diverse, where we also have diverse audiences within our makeup. So I know we used a lot of the case studies that were relevant to Black audiences, but we have campaigns specifically reaching Asian Pacific American as well as Hispanic. And another vision that we have together is really creating more of these partnerships with other founders of color and starting to bring other agencies to the table and identifying matchmaking opportunities.
Thank you.
Great.
Truth be told, my name is George Moy and Bill Amata.
Oh man, Bill, why are you letting him take your identity like that? Okay.
Oh, God. Oh, my gosh. All right.
There's a question.
Can we do one more? No.
We have a tradition of going over on time, so we did last year too.
Okay, Rebecca Metz.
Thanks, I'll just shout. First of all, would the two of you be my friend?
Yes.
Okay, I have a second. How have you seen clients changing in response to both the partnership and the way you're talking about it? Just so you know, the people that you're working with, I assume you're making change even in their organizations. How have you seen that happen?
Well, I think the response by clients has been extraordinary, both in terms of those clients who have raised the bar and are expecting agencies to show up in much more diverse ways. So there's that aspect, particularly our shared relationship with P&G. They've been incredibly supportive. That's one piece. The other piece is actually the work. And we work for clients like P&G and Kraft Heinz, where together we're helping them advance what we call, very much to the conversation we just had, multicultural at scale. So the response has been very positive because we're trying to do something different. It's creative, it's innovative, and it is addressing an issue that our clients feel very strongly about as well in terms of finally bringing more diversity. And I'm not saying we've cracked the code, but again, we're hoping this is a model that can be scaled.
Thank you, everybody. We got to get on to the next panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
And here's our email. So remember, a part of the dream was really creating an organization where we're bringing in diverse talent. Email us your resumes.